Amira was a poor orphan girl who had never known love since she lost her parents at a young age. Her mother had died when she was 6, and her father followed soon after. Since then she had lived with her uncle and aunt in a small, broken house at the edge of the village. Her uncle Musa and his wife Ruqayya were not kind people. They treated Amira like a servant, making her work from morning till night. Every day before the sun rose, Amira would sweep the compound, fetch water from the well and prepare food. While her cousins sat at the table to eat, she often stood aside, waiting for leftovers. Sometimes, her aunt would throw her a piece of dry bread and say coldly, "That's enough for you. Don't be greedy." Amira never argued. She would quietly eat what she was given, even if her stomach still ached from hunger. She often looked up at the stars at night and whispered, "Mama, Baba, if you can hear me, please help me. I'm trying to be good." One evening, as the family sat to eat, Amira accidentally dropped a plate while serving food. It shattered on the floor, and the room went silent for a moment before her aunt shouted, "You useless girl! You can't even hold a plate properly." Amira quickly bent down to pick the pieces, tears filling her eyes. "I'm sorry, Auntie. I didn't mean to." "Sorry? You're always sorry. You're nothing but bad luck in this house," her aunt yelled, her face red with anger. Her uncle, who had been drinking palm wine, slammed his cup on the table. "I'm tired of this girl. Always bringing trouble. Ruqayya, throw her out. Let her go and find where she belongs." Amira froze. Her heart pounded hard. "Uncle, please don't send me away," she begged. "I have nowhere to go." But her aunt had already opened the door and thrown Amira's small bag outside. Inside the bag were just 2 dresses, a broken hair comb, and a little locket her mother had left her before dying. "Get out of my house," Ruqayya shouted. "You eat our food and bring nothing but trouble." Amira's tears rolled freely down her cheeks as she stepped outside. The night was cold and the wind blew hard. She turned back one last time, hoping someone would stop her, but her uncle shut the door in her face. For a long moment she stood there, staring at the closed door. Her chest hurt and her hands trembled. She whispered, "They really don't want me." Slowly she began to walk down the dirt road. Her bare feet stepped on stones and mud, but she didn't care. The moonlight guided her as she walked past empty houses, the sounds of frogs echoing from the swamp nearby. Amira didn't know where she was going. She only knew she couldn't go back. She passed the village well and the market square, which looked ghostly in the dark. Her stomach growled, but she had no food. When she reached the edge of the forest, she sat under a big mango tree. The wind rustled the leaves above her. She hugged her knees tightly and cried softly. "Why is life so hard for me?" she whispered between sobs. "I never hurt anyone." A small cat came near her and rubbed against her leg. She smiled weakly and patted it. "Even you don't chase me away," she said gently. The night grew colder. Her thin dress could not protect her from the wind. She looked up at the stars and said, "God, if you can hear me, please help me. I have no one else. Please send me one good person." She closed her eyes, but sleep did not come easily. Her thoughts wandered to happier times when her mother used to sing to her. She remembered her father's laughter and how he would carry her on his shoulders. Those memories felt like dreams now, far, far away. The sound of thunder rumbled in the distance. Soon heavy rain began to fall. Amira tried to cover her head with her small bag, but it didn't help. Her hair was soaked and her clothes clung to her thin body. She moved closer to the trunk of the mango tree and tried to stay warm. "It's okay," she whispered to herself. "Rain will stop soon. It always stops." But it didn't stop quickly. The rain poured harder. Lightning flashed across the sky and the ground turned muddy. Amira's teeth chattered from the cold. She thought of her aunt and uncle sitting in their warm house and wondered if they even felt sorry. Still, even in her pain, she refused to hate them. "Maybe they just don't know love," she said quietly. "Maybe they never felt it." As she sat shivering, she began to hum a soft song her mother used to sing, a song about hope and light after darkness. Her voice was weak, but it comforted her heart. When the rain finally slowed, she looked at the road again. A small light flickered in the distance. It was a car's headlamp moving slowly through the foggy night. She wondered who would be out at such a late hour. The car passed without stopping, splashing a bit of muddy water near her. Amira didn't mind. She just sighed and said, "Maybe tomorrow will be better." She lay down on the wet ground, her head resting on her small bag. She looked up at the dark clouds, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "I will be okay," she whispered. "Mama used to say that after rain comes sunshine." Soon she drifted into sleep, her body weak but her heart still holding onto a tiny spark of faith. As the moon peeked through the clouds again, a soft breeze blew across her face. Somewhere far away a dog barked and the crickets sang. The world was quiet again. That night, under that old mango tree, Amira's life was about to change, though she didn't know it yet. She was just a poor orphan with no home, no family and no hope left, but fate was watching her. The next morning would bring a new beginning. The next morning came slowly. The sky was bright again, but the ground was still wet from the heavy rain. Amira opened her eyes as sunlight touched her face. Her clothes were damp and her hair was sticky from the mud. She sat up under the mango tree, shivering lightly, rubbing her arms to keep warm. Birds were singing on the branches above, but her stomach growled loudly. She hadn't eaten anything since the day before. She looked around and whispered, "Another day, maybe something good will happen today." With her small bag hanging over her shoulder, she started walking down the empty road. Her feet hurt, but she didn't stop. Every few steps, she looked back at the tree that had given her shelter. "Thank you," she said softly as if the tree could hear her. As she walked, she saw people going about their morning routines. A woman carrying firewood on her head, a man pushing a wheelbarrow full of vegetables, children laughing as they ran to school. Amira smiled faintly, missing the days when she used to go to school before her uncle stopped paying her fees. "Maybe I'll go again someday," she whispered, though even she wasn't sure if that dream could ever come true. After some time, she reached a small roadside market. She stood near a fruit stall, watching the seller slice a mango. The smell made her mouth water. She looked down sadly, realizing she had no money. The fruit seller, a kind elderly woman, noticed her. "Child, are you hungry?" she asked gently. Amira hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am." The woman smiled and handed her a small piece of mango. "Here. You look tired." Amira's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she said quietly. "God bless you." "Where are you going, child?" the woman asked. Amira sighed. "I don't know. I have nowhere to go." The woman's face softened. Life can be hard, but never stop believing that things will get better." Amira smiled weakly and thanked her again before walking away. She ate the mango slowly, savoring every bite. It was the sweetest thing she had tasted in a long time, not just because of the fruit but because of the kindness behind it. As she reached the edge of the market, she heard the sound of an engine. A shiny black car was parked by the roadside, and a man stood beside it, staring at the flat tire. He looked frustrated, glancing at his watch again and again. Amira stopped a few feet away and watched. People passed him, but no one offered help. Something in her heart told her to go closer. She walked up carefully and said softly, "Good morning, sir. Do you need help?" The man turned to look at her. He was tall, well-dressed, and his face looked kind but serious. His name was Prince Tund, though Amira didn't know that. To her he looked like just another traveler. He sighed and shook his head. "I think I have a flat tire. I don't have the right tools to change it." Amira looked at the car and then back at him. "There's a small shop nearby. I can borrow a spanner for you." Tund raised an eyebrow, surprised by her confidence. "You would do that for me?" Amira nodded simply. "Yes. No one should be left alone in trouble." She hurried to the shop, borrowed a spanner and came back. Though her hands were small and weak, she helped him unscrew the nuts. The road was hot and sweat ran down her face, but she didn't stop until the tire was fixed. Tund wiped his hands and looked at her in amazement. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "You didn't have to do this." Amira smiled faintly. "Helping doesn't cost anything." He reached into his pocket and pulled out some money. "Please take this as a thank you." Amira shook her head quickly. "No, sir. I don't want money. Just help someone else next time." Her words caught him off guard. In his world, people always wanted something in return: money, fame, or favor. But this poor girl had helped him out of pure kindness. He watched her walk away slowly, her bag swinging by her side. Something about her touched his heart deeply. Later that day, as Tund drove back to the city, he couldn't stop thinking about her face, the quiet strength in her eyes, the way she smiled even when she clearly had nothing. That night, while sitting in his large house surrounded by servants and luxury, he found himself restless. His mind kept going back to that girl by the roadside. Who was she, he thought aloud? And why do I feel like I've met someone special? He stood by the window looking out at the city lights. The rain began to fall softly, reminding him of how she had looked up at the sky that morning. He wondered if she had a home, if she had eaten, or if she was still walking somewhere alone. Meanwhile, Amira found an old wooden bench under a shed near the market and decided to rest there for the night. She wrapped her shawl tightly around her shoulders and whispered a prayer. "Thank you, God, for helping me meet kind people today. Please bless that man I helped. He seemed nice." As she drifted off to sleep, she had no idea that the man she spoke of was not just a kind traveler, but a billionaire prince in disguise, a man who had been hiding from the noise of his rich life, seeking peace in simplicity. The next morning, Tun sent his driver back to the market to find out more about her. The driver asked around and every shopkeeper said the same thing. "That girl? Her name is Amira. She's an orphan. Kind girl. Always helps people." When Tund heard this, he smiled softly and said, "Good hearts still exist." That evening he drove himself back to that same road, hoping to see her again. He parked near the mango tree, the same one she had slept under days before. The ground was still a little wet, but there was no sign of her. He sighed, leaned against his car and whispered, "If I see you again, I won't just thank you. I'll change your life." The stars shone brightly above as if listening to his words. Somewhere not far away, Amira was walking toward the same road, unaware that her life was about to take a turn she could never have imagined. The next day was bright and calm. The rain had stopped and the sky was clear again. Amira walked slowly along the road, holding her small bag close. She was tired and hungry, but she kept moving. Every time she passed someone, she smiled politely. Most people ignored her, but that never stopped her from greeting them. After walking for hours, she reached a large gate. The gate was tall and golden, with flowers planted on both sides. She stopped and stared, amazed by how beautiful the place looked. Behind the gate was a big mansion, larger than anything she had ever seen. She whispered to herself, "Who lives here? It looks like a palace." As she stood there, unsure what to do, a car stopped beside her. The window rolled down and to her surprise, it was the same man she had helped the day before, Tund. He smiled warmly. "You again?" he said gently. "I've been looking for you." Amira's eyes widened. "Sir, you remember me?" "How could I forget?" he said. "You helped me when no one else would." He looked at her closely. "You look tired. Have you eaten?" She lowered her head shyly. "No, sir. Not today." He nodded and said, "Come with me. I'll get you something to eat." Amira hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should go with him. But something in his voice felt safe, kind, and true. Slowly she nodded. "Thank you, sir." Tund opened the car door for her. As she sat down, she felt nervous. She had never been inside such a fine car. The seats were soft and the air smelled fresh. She looked out the window as they drove through the large gate into the mansion. Her eyes widened even more. The garden was full of bright flowers, fountains, and tall trees. Birds were flying around freely. When the car stopped, Tun stepped out first and said kindly, "Welcome, Amira." She stood quietly, unsure how to react. "This is your house?" she asked softly. He smiled. "Yes. But today it's your home too, at least for now." Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve this, sir." Tun shook his head gently. "Everyone deserves kindness." He led her into the house. The marble floor shone like glass and the lights sparkled above. Amira looked around with wonder. She had never seen so much beauty in one place. A maid came forward and bowed slightly to Tund. "Welcome back, sir." Tund nodded. "Please get some food for my guest." Amira quickly waved her hands. "No, no, sir, please don't trouble anyone. I can eat something small." Tund smiled. "It's no trouble. Sit and rest." Soon the maid returned with warm rice, stew, and a glass of juice. Amira ate slowly, tears filling her eyes again. "It's been so long since I had real food," she whispered. Tund watched her quietly, smiling. There was something peaceful about her presence, something honest and pure. After she finished eating, he said softly, "You can rest here tonight. You'll be safe." Amira looked surprised. "Here? In this big house?" "Yes," he replied. "There's a small guest room. You can stay as long as you need." She looked down, unsure how to thank him. "You are too kind, sir. I don't know what to say." "Just say you'll take care of yourself," he said kindly. "That's enough." Later that evening, Amira took a warm bath and changed into the clean clothes the maid gave her. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she hardly recognized the girl staring back. Her hair was brushed, her face was clean, and her eyes looked brighter. She smiled a little and whispered, "Maybe this is the beginning of something good." That night, she lay on the soft bed, feeling comfort she hadn't felt in years. She looked out the window and saw the moon shining above the garden. "Thank you, God," she whispered. Thank you for sending this man my way. Downstairs, Tun sat in his study thinking about her. He had met so many people in his life, rich women, business partners, celebrities, but none of them had made him feel the way Amira did. Her kindness reminded him of his late mother, who always said, "The richest hearts are those that still love after being broken." He thought about what Amira had said earlier, that helping doesn't cost anything. He smiled to himself. "She's right," he said quietly. "But her heart is priceless." The next morning, Amira woke up early. She didn't want to seem lazy in a stranger's house. She looked out the window and saw gardeners working in the yard. Without being told, she went outside and began helping them. She swept the garden path, picked fallen leaves, and even watered the flowers. One of the workers looked at her in surprise. "Madam, you don't need to do this." Amira smiled kindly. "I'm not a madam. I'm just helping." When Tun came outside later, he saw her bending over the flower beds, her face glowing under the morning sun. "Amira," he called. She turned quickly, wiping her hands on her dress. "Good morning, sir." "What are you doing?" he asked, walking closer. "Helping a little," she said shyly. "The garden is beautiful. I wanted to keep it clean." Tun chuckled softly. "You don't have to. You're my guest." "But I can't just sit and do nothing," she said. "It feels right to help." Tun looked at her for a moment, then smiled warmly. "You have a good heart, Amira." She smiled back. "Thank you, sir." As days passed, Amira continued to live quietly in the mansion. She never complained, never demanded anything. She helped the maids, cleaned the garden, and even played with the cook's children in the backyard. Everyone began to like her. The workers would whisper, "That girl is different. She's so humble." Tun noticed her more and more each day. He liked how she spoke politely to everyone, how she smiled even when she was tired, and how she always thanked the staff for even the smallest things. One afternoon, as he watched her from the balcony, he thought, "She has more grace than all the rich people I know." Later that evening, he walked down to the garden where she was watering the flowers. "You've made this place look even more beautiful," he said. Amira turned and smiled shyly. "Thank you, sir. I like taking care of living things. They make me happy." He nodded. "You've changed the atmosphere of this whole house, Amira. It feels peaceful." She looked down, a little embarrassed. "Maybe because everyone here is kind to me." Tun smiled. "Maybe because your kindness fills the air." Amira laughed softly, her eyes bright. For the first time in a long time she felt truly happy, not because of the mansion or the food but because someone saw her for who she was, not what she had. That night, when she went to bed, she thought about Tun's words. "He said I belong here," she whispered. "But do I really?" Her heart beat fast. She didn't know that Tun, in his room upstairs, was asking himself a similar question. "Why does it feel like she's the one my heart has been waiting for?" Outside, the moon shone brightly on the mansion, and the wind carried the soft scent of the flowers she had watered that morning. Two souls, from two different worlds, were beginning to find peace in each other's presence. The sun was setting slowly, painting the sky with orange and pink colors. Amira was in the garden, trimming the flowers and humming softly to herself. It had been a few months since she started living at the mansion, and every day felt like a dream she never wanted to end. She had grown used to the staff, and they treated her with love and respect. The cook often brought her special food, saying, "You're like our sunshine, Amira." The guards greeted her warmly every morning, and the maids always wanted to help her with chores. The mansion had changed, laughter filled the halls now. Prince Tun noticed this change. He often stood by his window, watching her work quietly in the garden or play with the gardener's little daughter. She had brought light into a house that once felt empty. One evening, Tun decided to hold a dinner for his close friends and business partners. It was going to be a grand event, with music, laughter, and fine food. Everyone in the mansion was busy preparing for it. Amira too helped with decorations. She placed flowers on each table, arranged candles, and smiled as she worked. "Everything must look beautiful," she said softly to herself. When the night came, the mansion shone like a palace. Expensive cars lined up outside, and guests in elegant clothes entered with smiles. Inside, soft music played and laughter filled the air. Tun looked sharp in his dark suit. He greeted his guests with warmth, but his eyes often searched for one person, Amira. He finally saw her standing quietly near the corner, wearing a simple dress one of the maids had given her. She looked nervous, unsure if she belonged there. When Tun walked to her, she quickly bowed her head. "Good evening, sir," she said shyly. "You look beautiful tonight," he said gently. Her cheeks turned red. "Thank you, sir." I just came to help serve food. He shook his head. You don't need to serve anyone tonight. You are my guest. She looked surprised. Your guest? But sir, I am just. He smiled. You are part of this home, Amira. Don't forget that. As the night went on, everyone was enjoying themselves, talking, eating, and laughing. Amira stood quietly near the table, not wanting to draw attention. But one of the guests, a proud woman dressed in shining clothes, noticed her. The woman, named Lydia, whispered to her friend, Who is that girl? She doesn't look like she belongs here. Her friend shrugged. Maybe she's one of the workers. Lydia laughed softly. Then why is she standing so close to the prince? Amira overheard them and stepped back quietly. She didn't want trouble. But Lydia wasn't done. She stood up, walked to Amira and said loudly, Excuse me, dear. Are you lost? This is not the kitchen. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look. Amira froze, her heart beating fast. I'm not lost, she said softly. Lydia smirked. Oh, then why are you here? You don't look like one of us. Before Amira could answer, a strong voice broke through the silence. Enough. It was Tund. He had heard everything. He stood up, his face calm but his voice firm. Lydia, he said. You are my guest, but you have no right to insult anyone in my home. Lydia's smile faded. I was only asking a question. He stepped closer. No, you were mocking her. And I will not tolerate disrespect, especially not toward someone who has shown more kindness and dignity than many who wear gold. Everyone in the room stayed quiet. Amira's eyes filled with tears. Tund looked around at his guests. This young woman, he said, has a heart of gold. She has worked hard, shown respect to everyone here and never once complained. If you can't see her worth, then perhaps it is your eyes that are blind. The guests lowered their heads. Lydia looked embarrassed. I didn't mean any harm, she muttered. Tund's voice softened slightly. Then let this be a lesson, not all wealth shines on the outside. He turned to Amira and smiled kindly. You belong here, Amira. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise. Amira stood still, tears falling down her cheeks. She nodded quietly. Thank you, sir. The guests went back to eating, though the air felt different now, quieter, more thoughtful. Many of them glanced at Amira with new respect. Later that night, after everyone left, Amira went to her small room. She sat on the bed, thinking about what had happened. She felt grateful but also sad. He defended me, she whispered. But I don't want to cause him trouble. She looked around the room, then packed her few clothes into a small bag. She couldn't stay here anymore. It was too much, too beautiful, too kind. She didn't belong in a prince's world. Quietly, she opened the door and stepped out into the garden. The moonlight shone on the flowers she had cared for. She smiled sadly. Thank you for keeping me company, she whispered to the plants. Maybe one day I'll come back. She was just about to walk toward the gate when she heard footsteps behind her. Amira. Her heart stopped. It was Tund. He was standing there in the dark, his eyes full of concern. Where are you going? He asked softly. She turned slowly, holding her small bag. I don't belong here, sir, she said quietly. People like me don't fit in your world. Tund walked closer, shaking his head. You think this world is only for the rich? She looked down. I don't want to make trouble for you. They'll talk, they'll laugh. He interrupted her gently. Let them talk, Amira. I don't care what they say. She looked up, confused. Why, sir? Why are you so kind to me? He smiled faintly. Because you remind me of what truly matters. You remind me that kindness is not weakness, that love is not measured in gold. Her eyes filled with tears again. But, sir, I am nothing. Just a poor girl. Tund shook his head. No, Amira. You are everything this house was missing. Peace, warmth, honesty. He reached out his hand. Don't go. You belong here. For a moment, Amira stood still. Her heart was full of fear and hope at the same time. Slowly she put her small hand in his. I'll stay, she whispered. Tund smiled, his eyes soft. Good. Then this place is truly home. As they walked back toward the mansion under the moonlight, the night felt calm again. The flowers swayed gently in the wind as if they were smiling too. Inside the house, Amira looked around, at the lights, the paintings, the people who had once been strangers. For the first time she didn't feel like an outsider anymore. And upstairs, as Tund stood by the window later that night, he whispered to himself, This house isn't my kingdom. Her heart is. Outside, the garden glowed under the stars, and peace returned to the mansion once more. Months passed after that unforgettable night when Amira almost left the mansion. Life slowly returned to peace, but something deep had changed, both in Amira and in Prince Tund. The mansion no longer felt like a cold palace of gold. It became a home full of warmth, laughter, and life. Every morning, Amira would wake up early to water the flowers in the garden. The sun would rise gently and she would whisper a small prayer of thanks. She had food, safety, and kindness, things she once thought she would never have again. Tund often joined her in the mornings. He liked watching her work with quiet focus, the way her hands moved carefully over the flowers, and how she smiled at the simplest things. He thought, this woman came into my life like rain after a long dry season. In the village nearby, people began to notice changes too. Tund had started helping poor families, giving them food, medicine, and school supplies. When asked why he was doing all this, he always smiled and said, someone once reminded me what real kindness means. But in truth he was thinking of Amira. One evening as they sat in the garden, Tund said softly, Amira, I want to do something special, not just for you but for people like you. Amira looked up, surprised. For people like me, sir? He nodded. Yes. People who have known hunger, pain, and loneliness, but still choose kindness. She looked down, shyly touching her fingers. You've already done so much. You gave me a home when I had nowhere to go. He smiled gently. You gave me something greater, a heart that feels again. A few weeks later, preparations began for a big event at the mansion. The staff worked day and night, decorating the hall with white flowers and gold ribbons. Guests from across the city were invited, businessmen, royals, and even local villagers. Amira helped too, though she didn't understand what the event was for. It's something special, Tund said with a small smile. When the big day arrived, the mansion was filled with light and joy. Music played softly and everyone was excited. Amira wore a simple white dress given to her by the housekeeper. She looked beautiful, though she didn't even realize it. Tund walked to the stage holding a microphone. The crowd quieted down. His voice was calm but filled with emotion. Many of you know me as Prince Tund, he began. You know my businesses, my travels, and my wealth. But today I want to speak about something money cannot buy. People leaned forward, listening. He turned slightly and looked at Amira. Months ago I met a girl who had nothing, no family, no home, no food. But she had a heart so pure that it changed everything around her. Amira froze in surprise. Everyone turned to look at her. She could feel her hands trembling. Tund continued, when I met her, she was broken and afraid. Yet she still had hope. And through her kindness, she reminded me that true strength is not found in riches but in compassion. He paused, his eyes warm. That girl's name is Amira. The crowd gasped softly. Amira covered her mouth, her eyes wide. Tund smiled. And today I am proud to announce a foundation in her honor, the Amira Hope Foundation. It will help orphans, widows, and poor families find food, education, and shelter. Applause filled the hall. Tears rolled down Amira's cheeks as she stood there, unable to move. She never imagined her name would be spoken with such honor. Tund reached out his hand and said, Amira, please join me. Slowly she walked to the stage, still shaking. He helped her up gently, and when she looked into his eyes, she saw nothing but kindness. Sir, she whispered, tears falling. I don't deserve this. He smiled softly. You deserve the world, Amira. You showed me that kindness can change lives, mine included. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand and said quietly, You gave me more than shelter, sir. You gave me hope when I thought I had none left. The crowd clapped loudly, some even wiping their own tears. Together they cut the ribbon to open the foundation. Cameras flashed, music played, and children from the village ran forward, cheering. Amira knelt down and hugged them tightly. She saw herself in their little faces, lost, hungry, but still full of dreams. Later that evening, when the event ended, Tund and Amira stood by the balcony watching the stars. The mansion was quiet again, filled with peace. Tund looked at her and said softly, Do you ever think about the night we met? Amira nodded. I remember it every day. I was scared and alone. I prayed for someone to help me, and then your car stopped. He smiled. And I thought I was helping you. But maybe it was you who saved me. Amira looked down shyly. You saved me too, sir. The wind blew gently, lifting a strand of her hair. Tund reached out and tucked it behind her ear. His touch was gentle, respectful. From now on, he said, we will help others, together. She smiled brightly, her eyes shining. Together, she repeated. The moonlight fell softly on them as if blessing their new beginning. Days turned into weeks and the foundation grew quickly. Orphans found homes, children went to school, and families received food and medicine. Amira worked there every day talking to people, helping them, listening to their stories. Everyone called her Madam Amira, and they loved her deeply. Prince Tund often visited the foundation quietly, watching her from a distance with pride. He knew that the world had changed for the better because of one small act of kindness, the night he stopped his car beside a lost girl. Whenever it rained, he would stand by the window watching the drops fall. The sound of rain always reminded him of that night, the night a poor orphan girl had entered his life and filled it with meaning. He had once believed that power and money could build a legacy. But now he understood that the greatest legacy is love, the kind that asks for nothing in return. And as for Amira, she never forgot where she came from. Every time she saw a lonely child or a hungry woman, she stopped to help, saying softly, "Kindness changed my life once. Let it change yours too." Together they built a life not of wealth but of purpose, one heart at a time. And in every smile they brought to the world, their story lived on. A story of pain, faith, and love that grew from the darkest night into the brightest dawn. And whenever the rain fell on the mansion, its sound carried a quiet message, the echo of a prayer whispered long ago by a girl who once had nothing. Now she had everything that truly mattered. The house, the prince, the laughter, the peace, and most of all, love that could never fade. The rain continued to fall softly, like a gentle song of memory. And every drop seemed to say the same thing. Kindness never dies. The end. Sparkling heart cloud with rain.